This is so great doing this together, isn't it?
All right, this time, we're actually live.
Okay.
All right, welcome to the Contagious Thoughts Podcast.
Woo!
So I have to say that today it's been a production. So today we are just my wife and I. Well, I'm about to intro her in a second, but there's no camera crew. There's no sound crew. We are the camera crew and the sound crew. So
Darwin is the camera crew and the sound crew.
that's probably more accurate. Yeah. So whoever's watching, give us some grace. This is our first 3-camera production.
There are 4 cameras.
There's 4 cameras. Sorry, there's 4 cameras. Between our full frame camera, our 2 iPhones, and our MacBook that's recording right there. So we're there. We're there. So I have to say, guys, every episode I say I have a special guest. But I have to say, above all the guests that I've ever had, this is the most special guest.
Aww.
The most special guest. And the listeners are probably like, dude, you say every guest is special. But no, guys, seriously. This is the most special guest. And I'll tell you why. I already kind of told you, but you can probably put pieces together. But today, I have a very beautiful human. And I don't just mean beautiful on the exterior, although she really is, but beautiful on the inside as well. And this is a person who has had a ton of accomplishments in their life. She's an MSW, which means she has her master's in social work. She's also a LSW, which means that she's a licensed social worker. And she's worked in healthcare, behavioral health, the education system, mental health care. And she also has the absolute privilege of being my business partner. My sounding board, my board of advisors, my best friend, my baby mama.
Times 3.
Baby mama times 3. Yeah. And my bride of almost 8 years. Although we've been together for over a decade. I think it's actually come up on 11 years that we've been together. So I have, guys, Jasmine.
Yay. Woo.
Welcome to the show, babe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. What a nice intro.
Yeah. You're welcome. And I'll let her introduce the quote. This is actually take 2 of this episode. We recorded this episode while we were in Maine on an anniversary getaway, like almost a year ago. In May it'll be a year. Mm-hmm. Right now we're in March.
Yep.
In May it'll be a year. And we had to do it over. It was the episode. We had to do it over. Like,
why did we have to do it over?
You were tired.
I was very tired.
You were sleepy. I was like, we cannot put this out. This is the content was good.
Yes.
It was just the delivery of the content. It was a little sleepy, and we didn't really plan it out as much as we needed to.
No.
I think.
It was still very early on into the process too.
Yeah. So I'm going to introduce the topic, and I'm going to let my wife do the background because last time we tried this, I sucked at the background, and she did a lot better job than I did. So the title of the episode today is actually a quote that's from an article that my wife sent to me over a year ago. And it hit me so hard that not only have I asked this quote in in episode number 1 of the season, I read this quote to Mav, who they're actually in episode 1 and 2. Go back and check it out. But I read it to them and I asked for their thoughts on the quote. And here we are doing an episode on it because of just how impactful the quote has been to me. And the quote is, "Be yourself so that the people looking for you can find you." And it's by Arlan Hamilton. If I'm butchering her name, forgive me, I butcher everyone's name. But I have to ask you, babe, why'd you send me the quote? How'd you stumble upon this? And I'll let you kind of do your summary thing.
Okay. So when I came across the quote, we were still in the building stages of our businesses. We have a couple I think that Darwin has talked about. But honestly, like, we were so new to the space that I know for me personally, I felt like a lot of different insecurities. But, you know, like Darwin said, I work in education currently right now, and I work with high school students. And so I have this little calendar on my desk where you like the ones where you like flip the days, and like each day has its own quote. And so on that particular day, it was be yourself so that those looking for you can find you, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find the exact person because I believe in the calendar, I have to go back and check it, it said unknown. And so I had just Googled it. And then I came across this article by Miss Hamilton, or Arlan Hamilton. And so essentially in the article, it's talking about a company that she owns, she's the founder of, called I want to say it was Backline Creators.
Don't get me lying.
I have it down. It's in my phone, and we're using my phone to
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yes, I'll put it in the show notes. It's a really awesome article. But essentially in the article, she wrote it in regards to different investors. So for her thesis, when she was in graduate school, she had found that people who were in tech, who were founders of their own companies, had a hard time finding investors. Specifically, those people were people who were of a minority. And so because they were categorized other for one reason or another, they were having a hard time finding people to invest money into their ideas, into the things that they wanted to create. Arlan did her research on it, and then she would send her research out to different founders to kind of shed light to it. And unfortunately, a lot of those founders, they couldn't see the issue. They couldn't see that these types of people specifically were being discriminated against without really knowing it, essentially. So she created her company that invests in businesses specifically for those minorities or those who are categorized as others. So it was really cool. The article just essentially discusses the importance of you being yourself so that investors who are looking for you, who are interested in your product, they will find you. It doesn't necessarily matter if they understand it or not. If it resonates with them, they will find you and they will invest in you. But I use the quote for the students that I work with at my job because it can be applied to more than just business. It can be applied to life in general. And yeah, I thought it was a really good article for Darwin to read. And that's why I sent it to him.
I think it was a great article.
Yes.
It's been on 2 episodes of the podcast now, so I think it was a winner.
Yeah.
And honestly, even though you mentioned in the article that her intention was, being yourself so that the people looking for you can find you, and the people looking for you, maybe that she was referencing, were investors. Mm-hmm. I think that this translates to everywhere in life. I mean, I think that this is. This can be investors. This could be your fan base or your client base. It can be relationships, people in your circle. I think that it's such a profound quote. I think that it translates to multiple other areas of life, which is the context of our discussion today.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a few things that I want to talk through on the show today, and one of them is just learning who you are. In order to be yourself, first you have to know yourself and learn yourself, and then for me, it's a continual process. Just like I know my spouse, but it's continued learning, or like continued education, like they make you do. Like if you have like a certification or something like that, there's like continued education. It's the same thing with relationships. And I also believe, my personal belief, that it's the same thing with myself. I'm continuing to explore myself, continuing to learn myself as I get older and change and mature. So I want to first talk about learning who we are. I also want to then go into being that person, like being okay with being that person out loud and unapologetically. And then lastly, I want to dive into this idea of why it's meaningful for the people who are looking for you to find you. And going off of that first, kind of that first leg of the discussion, why it's just it being important to learn who you are. I want to dive into that. I mean, and learning who you are, I mean, that's the more simple things or the more surfacey things like likes and dislikes, strengths and weaknesses. But even those things are, I mean, they change. Change over time. Like my likes and dislikes, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, like I know what my likes and dislikes are, but there's also things that surprise me, and I might not know until something happens. Something happens to me, and I'm like, you know what? I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I didn't like that at all, actually. And then that's a new experience for me, and I'm like, well, yeah, I didn't know that before, but now I do. Because of an experience that I had, or maybe an interaction with a person. And I'm like, you know what? Really don't like that.
Yeah. And I like what you said, too, about how it changes over time.
Yeah.
Because you are not the same person that you were.
Please. I'm the same. I've not changed.
Over a decade ago when I met
met
you.
No, seriously, I've changed a lot.
You've changed so much. I think that, we don't have to get into that. But yeah, specifically, I like that you highlighted that because
maybe we'll get into that on the Patreon if you pay $5 a month and join the Contagious Collective.
Goodness gracious.
Had to put the shameless plug in there.
You should. They should join it.
Yeah, you should, guys. It's $5. Come on,
You can spend $5.
Yeah, you can. Join it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Back to the show.
But yeah, as you said, like it does change. It changes over time as you mature, as you go through different experiences in life. It's important to recognize. Yeah.
And even going off of that, it's also personality and temperament, which I think is like how I think it's a lot deeper than, the surface, because I think that our personality, how we experience it, how we see it, might be different from how people receive it. So I might have a certain view, like I have like a first person, I don't know if I'm going to keep this word in, but like a first person shooter mode. And I'm saying that as like a video game, people who like played like James Bond games and all those types of games growing up. Like it's like it's the viewpoint that we have of the world through our own eyes, through our own lens. But then the way people receive that, you might not have awareness unless you have a tight circle around you who is, they're honest with you and tell you how you can come off to people. And then there's temperament, which my understanding of temperament, and I've done, there's like the DISC models, and there's the I said this, you heard that, which is like a faith-based one. But I think that regardless of what faith you're a part of, like it can be applicable. And then there's the Myers-Briggs, and there's all the different models. But my understanding of temperament is it's like who you are at your core. Like my understanding of that is it doesn't really change over time. Like it's like maybe it can. I don't know. Maybe that's another conversation. But it's like who you were built to be. It's like the core of who you are. And it's a little bit different from like personality, because you can have people that have the same temperament but different personalities, is my understanding of it. So like learning, like I learned a lot about myself by taking a lot of these, the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, some stuff obviously I already knew, but a lot of things I learned. So there's like learning who you are and from a temperament and personality standpoint. Then there's like the experiential, like I mentioned a little bit, ago. You don't really know how you're going to respond in an experience or a situation until you go through it.
Yeah.
Like I might think like, oh, if, like there's the story actually kind of ended a little sad, but of like someone who was like driving down the road and someone threw like an egg at their car. And I might think to myself, oh, if someone did that, I would do X, Y, and Z. But then it happens and I respond completely differently.
For sure.
And then I self-analyze and I say, well, why did I respond that way? Like, what was it that happened inside of me to why I thought I would get out the car and tell him about himself, but I didn't, or whatever, you know? So all these things, I mean, like, in your opinion, your perspective, like, why do you think that the learning of oneself is important or critical?
Well, we live in a society, I feel like, that tells us who we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think that alone, that can either make or break your experiences in life. You can spend so much of your life being somebody that you're actually not.
Yeah.
And that's hard. So when you think about business specifically, you could spend so much time trying to be the person who you think you're supposed to be in business, and that's not actually you. And in my opinion, unless you're like an actor or something like that, that's not going to work long term. You can't just be somebody that you're actually not. So going back to what you were saying, like, it's really important to first do some self-exploration so you can figure out who you actually are, and then build your business around that. Or even like if you want to look at it from a personal way, it's like, look at who you are and make sure that your life lines up with that person. Because if it's not, then what are you doing? And you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's like, how is it actually serving you? Or is it hurting you, pretending like you're somebody that you're not? Or maybe you don't even know that you're pretending. Maybe you're just, you've shaped yourself around everything that people told you were, as
like
opposed,
survival.
You're just, you are being what people have told you that you were, instead of being who you were created to be.
I think that even, you mentioned like if someone's acting, I think that even the best actors eventually have to come out of character. You watch these amazing movies, these amazing films, and it's like, okay, there was a set, and maybe they filmed for 8 months or a year or whatever it is, and then the movie was over, and then the actor had to stop acting. So it's like, no one, even the best of actors, can't act forever. Eventually there's like fatigue of being someone who you're not, you know, or just not being your authentic self, or living a life that's not true to like who you actually are,
for sure,
you know. And then I also think that there's like learning yourself. It's like, how do you at least for me, I mean, I had to analyze, like, how do I respond to things when I'm by myself versus how I respond in a group? What type of support system do I need? What type of circle do I need, as far as like people being in my corner? You know, all those types of things, like, are, I think, a part of like learning who I am.
Yeah, for sure. I think that kind of going off of that whole actor example that you gave, there are definitely like interviews that I've seen specifically where actors have been a specific character, like on a TV show or something like that, for years and years and years, or like in a movie that has multiple, you know, videos, whatever. And then when they are no longer, like when they come out of that, multiple seasons, well, I'm talking about like movies. What would that be? Like
sequels,
like sequels of it, and so like when it's all over, they can have a hard time finding themselves. Like, you start being this, like if you start being this particular character at a young age, and then say it's lasted for 10 years, you have to look at yourself and be like, who am I without this character, you know? So, but yeah, I agree the importance of it, and I like the example that you gave too. It's like, who are you behind closed doors, like when, you know,
when you're solo,
when you're by yourself.
And that's actually really interesting, that like if you're someone else for long enough, it might be even more difficult for you to truly find yourself. You know, because you're out of practice with being yourself, you know, and you have to work that muscle again. I find that very interesting. If you see that our video like randomly stops and then like starts again, and then we're like in a different position, it's because something happened with our kids. And so we have 3 kids, and we're trying to record this episode while my mother-in-law watches the 3 kids. One of them is a newborn, so I'm sure, as you can imagine, that's very unpredictable. So if you hear any background noises, I'm sure I'm going to get comments from people on YouTube saying I can hear background noise. We're doing our best, and there may be some background noise. So Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a glimpse into exactly what we're talking about today, and what Jazz and I hope to continue talking about when we release an episode for the Patreon, and what it's like to run a business or build a company or build a dream, pursue something that you're passionate about when you're married with multiple kids, and it's a juggling act, and there's a lot of nuances to it. So pay $5 on the Patreon, and you get to hear us dive into the details and give you more context and go into what the behind the scenes looks like. So with that being said, I think that's a great segue for the second leg of the conversation, which is being okay with being yourself and being who you are out loud and unapologetically. And this is actually a leg of the conversation that when we were first planning this out, that you actually shared that you thought was important, and I 100% agree. And I think that it's difficult to be yourself outside of yourself sometimes. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to make like generalizations for everybody, but I can speak for myself. There's times in life where I felt like it was easy to be myself in my head. Like I knew what resonated with me and what didn't. But then depending on what circle I was in or what environment I was in, it was really hard to be myself when I was in front of these other people, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that if I'm doing that though, I'm not really being true to myself. And if I'm doing that, whatever I'm building is probably not going to be authentic. And there's probably going to be some sort of fatigue eventually, or like we talked about earlier, where you are acting or you're being someone else for so long that it's like hard to be yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to eventually set in. But I guess, why do you feel like it's important to be yourself, to be yourself out loud and unapologetically?
Well, I think when you're trying to be something or somebody that you're not, it's not healthy for you.
Sure.
I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on yourself to always be like in performance mode and not actually be in you mode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I love the analogy. What is it? When people like sing in the shower, and you sing like nobody's watching, because when you're in the shower, you know you're by yourself. You're like belting away, singing your heart out. Yeah, but like why are we so afraid to sing our hearts out when we're in front of people? I think that's why like things like karaoke are like so like popular sometimes. Like it's like your excuse to like not be perfect at singing, but just like sing your heart out, especially like when you like kind of take it seriously, when you're like with friends or people that you like care about, or maybe you just feel more comfortable being that way with no one that you know around you.
Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like we all deserve that little bouts of freedom. And I think that when we're trying to perform or be something, or trying so hard to be who others want us to be, it creates like this underlying anxiety within us.
Yeah.
And then when we let parts of ourselves out that we aren't sure people are going to accept, it can create that anxiety can double in a sense. It's like, oh my God, like, are they still going to like me? Or whatever, like whatever that thing could be. And so, in business specifically, like if you want your business to be, a true example of who you are, right? You want people to be able to see that part of you too. Like almost like nobody's perfect. Like we're trying to do this podcast today, and it's been crazy. The setup has been crazy. We're new to it, right? And Darwin is definitely like a one-man show. He's a videographer. He's the sound guy. He's the editor. you know, and it takes a long time to set up. You want things to be right. And it took time. And then our kids come home in the middle of us trying to record. You know, our 2 girls come home from school, and it's like, you know, it's real life. You know, the baby that we have is crying outside. I could hear him, and I'm distracted, and it's just a lot going on. But like, if we were gonna try to perform for this podcast and pretend like our kids aren't here, or that they're like little angels and they don't scream, they don't fight, they don't cry, then we wouldn't be being ourselves. You know, it wouldn't be realistic. And I think that with a podcast like this that's supposed to inspire people, it wouldn't be real.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like especially if people are similar to me, where you can kind of spot out like BS. It's like I
can smell it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know, like I don't want anyone trying to inspire me if they're not real.
Yeah.
You know, especially if I can't relate to you, if I'm being honest, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to listen to the podcast if I feel like I can't relate to you. Yeah. So I think, you know, with this, again, like this being a journey, it's almost like, all right, like you're going to hear the kids. Hopefully you're not judgmental, but if you are, this isn't the podcast. this isn't the episode for you. Go listen to another episode when we're not at home, when I'm not here, right? Because I'm probably always going to have the baby with me. And, you know, listen to the other ones, you know. But I think that if people are in a similar stage of life, they may actually appreciate it. Yeah. And, you know, as much as you love this podcast, as much as I love this podcast, it's more than a hobby. It is a business, right? And if you are someone who is looking to start a business in this crazy stage of life, it's still possible. And hopefully you'll be able to resonate with it and laugh at it in a way, or even just feel like you're not alone. Because sometimes you have to record through the noise. You have to push through the noise. So
and I think people are attracted to authenticity. Well, I guess maybe I'll say authentic people are attracted to authenticity. Maybe people who are fake, they like fake stuff, you know, like they smell the BS and like, oh yeah, I'm full of BS too. Yeah.
But I think so. Like, okay, going off of that, I don't even think that people know when they're not being real. I don't know. Like, I think that like maybe some people know, like, what's that expression? Like, I can kiki at any time. I don't know. I'm not sorry if I sound like I'm an old woman. I really am in my early 30s. But like, I know there's that expression like I can kiki, and it's almost like I can like put on a show for you to be polite or to be cordial. But like aside from that, like I don't know, like people who we categorize as fake people always know that they're not being really them, if that makes sense. I think that they're being who they want to be, but it's like a journey to realize that doesn't work, or that you're not really being your true self, or you're not meant to be that person.
My devil's advocate to that is, I think that people who, at any time, I'll just say, I'll include myself in this.
Okay.
You know, so I'm not like coming across as I'm pointing the finger at everyone else except for myself. You know, I think that when we're not our true selves, or we're not living a life that's true to who we are, I think that deep inside, like we know. I think that we know, and I think that there's times where we're not honest with ourselves. Though, I think there's times that we are afraid to look in the mirror because we're afraid of what we're going to see.
Sure.
And I think that some people are out of practice at looking in the mirror and being honest with themselves, like really honest with themselves. I think that once you start practicing that, like asking yourself questions and not being afraid of the answer, I think that it's at those times when that muscle is being exercised, and then maybe you can start building the momentum or building that as a habit to where it becomes more comfortable, it becomes more natural. You get used to being real with yourself. But I mean, imagine if you've been putting on the front your whole life, which I've been there before in different ways. It's too deep for this episode though. But if you've been putting on the front your whole life and you're used to lying to yourself, because being honest with yourself is terrifying. Maybe being honest with yourself means that you have to face the thing that terrifies you to your core. Or it's like, man, I would rather do a lot of things. I'd rather die than face this particular fear, you know, or face this particular thing from the past, or whatever it is.
Sure.
You know, if that is a reality for a person, of course it's going to be, you know, like you're going to be not honest, you're going to be dishonest with yourself and go on, you know, living life, I guess, in a not authentic way. And that's going to be like your comfort zone. It's going to be what's comfortable for you, you know? And then people say, oh, are you fake or are you phony? Oh, no, man, I'm real, man. I'm this and that. Or, no, I'm being my authentic self. It's all a defense. It's all smoke and mirrors. But if you're not ready to face that, or ready to, you know, like face yourself or face the truth, then no. But I personally believe that deep inside, if we're honest with ourselves, we're not real, like we know, or we're not living in a reality that is that like that resonates with us, or that is, as I heard someone else put it, as true for us. I feel like we know that, and we're not happy with it.
Sure. I think that we know it, but I think, okay, so maybe it's like just the term fake. Like, I think when you say like if someone were to be like, oh, they're fake, they're being fake, right? I see that as like they are like intentionally being something that they're not. Whereas I think that like your definition is more so people are like, they have that like deep knowing, they have that feeling within them that they want, that they are different, you know, or whatever, but like they're just not in a place yet to live out loud. Does that make sense? Like, I think I believe it's a journey to get there, to your point,
sure.
You know? But I think that when people are being someone that they're not, I don't think that it's always for malicious intent, for like a negative reason. I think that they believe that they're doing what they need to do for that time in their life. That's just me though. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't think that. I think that the intent, and for the sake of this particular topic of conversation, and the way I'm thinking of this is like the intent doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Like it matters, but I guess I can say that differently. I'm not saying the intent doesn't matter. I'm saying that I'm looking at this from, there's a bottom line. Either a person is living authentically or they're not. Either a person is living they're living in a way that is authentic for themselves and they're being, you know, real or whatever, or they're not. And it's like either a person is ready to face themselves, look in the mirror and ask themselves questions and be 100% honest and be okay with the answers and not be afraid of those answers or avoid those answers, or they're not. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, regardless to whether or not this person is doing it maliciously or not, or they're like trying to be fake or they're not trying to be, it's like, for me, it's like, are you living authentically or are you not?
Sure.
You know, whatever the reasons are for why you're not, okay, you got to dive into that. You got to explore that. It's worth exploring, I think, you know, but the bottom line is like, hey, you living authentically or not? You know, you being yourself or you not?
Sure.
So much of my life, I lived anything that was outside of my head, I was living as like a person that was not really me. You know, mm-hmm. I felt like I had to put on a like a shell that would be accepted by everyone else around me, because I didn't believe that if I was my authentic self, that people would accept me. I felt that way for the majority of my life, well into my 20s. It was only as I was about to enter into my 30s that I began to break down some of those barriers through a lot of counseling and sorting through a lot of stuff in the past, you know. But I've done that. I've lived that, and I knew it deep inside. I knew, but I wasn't ready to face I wasn't ready to face the reasons why I was doing that yet.
So for you, it's black and white is what I'm hearing. But at the same time, you're saying that like you have like compassion or you have empathy. Like maybe that's a better word. Like you can have empathy for people who aren't ready to face the black and white or the black and white perspective of that.
I would say I don't really think anything is black and white per se, but I think that maybe some things are, but I think that what I was trying to explain, and maybe I didn't do a good job explaining that, was the intent of it doesn't matter. Like if a person is not living authentically and they're being malicious about it, or they don't have good intent, like they're trying to be fake. I don't even know if malicious is the right way to say that, but they're intentionally like, oh, like I'm I don't know. Maybe malicious sounds like you're trying to hurt somebody. You know, I don't think that like a person who's being fake is trying to hurt somebody per se. It's just, you know, maybe a person is like, you know, they're doing it and I guess maybe I'll pause and ask, like, what do you mean by that? Because I think now, as I'm repeating it back out loud, I don't think that I follow, or I don't think that I understand what it means to be fake and be malicious. It's like malicious, like malice is like, and I'm sure people are going to Google this and be like, yo, you're wrong. But malice is like, it's like you have the intent to do harm to someone. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't know, unless you're like in a friendship and you're being fake in a way of like, I'm making promises to you and then I'm intentionally not delivering on the promises.
Yeah. So,
you know, maybe.
Yeah. For whatever reason, this is the only thing that's popping in my head, but you know that song by Swiss Beast? And it's like, right? Isn't that him? She's phony. She's fake. That's the type of people I hate. And yes, if it's like, if you're real, then clap your hand. That one. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so I think like for me, I think of like, all right, that song, right? You're like calling people out for like being fake. But like, if I like think of like the reality of that, right? Maybe it's because I work with like a young population of people, you know, the people who are going to be adults making decisions, you know, for us one day when we're old. But it's like, I can see that like they can be categorized as like fake, right? You're not being real. But it takes time to get to a place where you can be real. And I think it's kind of harsh to say, well, you're fake. And it's like, well, it's like, I'm not trying to be. Like, what do you mean I'm fake? You know what I'm saying? It's almost like, are you fake because you're trying to fit in, or you're trying to like meet like a perception? Because I feel like fake can feel really harsh and really judgmental. Okay. And maybe this is just like the super me trying to see the best in everybody type side of me. But like, I don't think that like people who are categorized as quote unquote fake, I just feel like it's just seen as so negative, and I see life as more of like a journey. Like you don't have to like tell yourself that you're fake, that you're being fake, you know, unless you were, like I said, unless you were like intensely doing that whole like I can kick you with the best of them type of like vibe, where like, you know, that you're just you're just being something to be cordial, you're being something to whatever, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I think that maybe I did say the word fake at some point. The, you know, listeners can go back and let me know if I'm being fake, so not, or they can go back and like and see if I did. But for me, I don't really, anyone who's been around me, I don't really talk like that. Like, I don't really go around calling people fake. It's like, what does that even mean? You know, maybe I do sometimes. I don't know. But the words that I was using was like inauthentic, or like not living as like your true self. You know, like I don't even go back and look at myself as like, oh, most of my life I was being fake. Most of my life I felt like I couldn't be my authentic self. That's how I would describe it. So I think that we could actually go the rest of this discussion and not even use the word fake, because that's not even really what that might throw people off as far as like what I'm trying to communicate.
Sure.
Or what we're actually talking about, you
Sure.
know? And I guess as far to touch on the black and white comment, like is it black and white? I think what I was trying to get across was either someone is living as their authentic self, or they're not living as their authentic self. And either someone is willing to face the reasons as to why they're not comfortable living with their authentic self, or look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves the questions of like, who am I? Why, or like, why is it so hard for me to like be myself unapologetically, out loud, in front of everybody? Why is that so difficult? And if that's terrifying, why is it terrifying? What terrifies me?
Yeah.
And what, even from my past experiences and recent or current experiences, are contributing to it being so terrifying. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, for
so
sure.
It's like, for me, it's if I was coming across as like, it's black and white, that's more so what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
For sure. I like that you asked the question too, like what's keeping you from being your most authentic self. And I think that's very much like in line with like the journey, right? So it's like, that's like a huge part of the journey, right? Because once you're able to face it, you'll be able to move forward into the next phase, right? Like being that person out loud once you face that fear. Because at the end of the day, it's fear. It's probably a fear of something. Right? For many people, it's rejection. Feeling like people aren't going to like them anymore or love them anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's like, what, like, if you think about what would they be rejecting, that's actually what I was going to say when we talk about singing in the shower. And part of the look, y'all, I can sing, man. All right. I don't care what nobody says. Haters gonna hate. But I can sing. I think I can sing well, right? But if I want to sing a song, right, and I just joke around and just kind of play around and sing, and people are like, oh, you trash, bro, you know, like, you're not, you know, like, you suck. It's like, all right, fine, cool, I wasn't trying my best. But if I like really try to sing and then they say that I suck, then it's like, dang, like, I was really trying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the rejection is harder.
Yeah. And
it's harder to digest. And so part of the fear, I think, of being my authentic self is like, man, if I'm really me and I let people in, and it's a vulnerable place to be. If I'm really myself and then I get rejected, it's one thing if they reject me when I'm putting on the front, or when I'm like pretending to be this other person, but I'm like really me and I let them in and I allow myself to be in that vulnerable space and then they reject me. Ooh, like, that hurts.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that, you know, the turtle being my favorite animal because it has a shell and it can like keep itself safe. Like, for me, there's like a safety mechanism or like a defense mechanism that doesn't want to allow myself to be in that vulnerable position.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to feel that rejection. It's like, I don't want to feel rejection on that level. You know, because then you're rejecting like me, like who I really am. And like, that hurts. And then it's like, man, who, like, if you're in a world where you don't know who accepts you, like, that could be lonely. Like, if you don't know who are your people, who are the people that love me for me.
Yeah.
If you can't find that, and I know we're going to talk about community in a second, but if you can't find that, it's lonely.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard, and that can be a discouraging place to be.
Sure.
You know, and I think that, and I'll just, you know, bring this up, that I think we actually mentioned it earlier, but it was like having people in your corner. Like, finding who your people are, like finding your circle, like your support system, kind of. So, and I know towards the end of the episode, we're going to talk about like why it's important to like be yourself so that those people that are looking for you can find you. Like, why is it important for the people to find you? Mm-hmm. But the other part of this leg that we're on right now is learning to face potential rejection. To process and deal with rejection that you've already faced. And then we're talking about fear, like being afraid of being your authentic self because of the potential rejection. Like, okay, how do I process that? Like, how do I set things up in place? Like, how do I have coping mechanisms or things that I can, I call it my happy place. Like, how can I retreat to my happy place? Yeah. How am I going to handle it if I experience rejection? Like, what's my game plan if I experience rejection? If I'm going to be hurt, okay, well, what am I going to do with that hurt? Mm-hmm. How am I going to handle that? Or in the moment that I feel rejected, like, what's my party line? Like, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
To help me save face a little bit.
Yeah.
Or help me to rebound from that rejection a little bit. Like, how am I going to deal with that?
I love the party line.
Yeah. I learned that from you. So.
Yeah. I got it from therapy. But anyway, years ago. But anyway, so I think that that's a really good question to ask yourself, right? So like, once you identify what it is that you're most afraid of, exactly, like, what are you going to do with it? And I live by like the rule of like, allow yourself to feel it, but don't allow yourself to stay there.
Sure. Because
if you feel it and you stay there, you're never going to be able to move forward, right? So the party line is helpful. So say if it's like, hey, like, if you go back to like your singing analogy,
yeah,
it's deciding like, hey, that really hurts. Like, I really thought I was a good singer.
Yeah.
But your party line can just be, I wasn't a good singer to them.
Right.
My mama likes my voice.
Party line to yourself or party line to the person that's rejecting you?
It could be both. Be like, okay, you just don't like my voice. I mean, how many people out there like say that, I've heard people say that Beyonce is not a good singer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or they're not. She can
laugh straight to the bank with that too.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But like, or they just don't like her, like her singing.
Style.
Or like, I know she just came out with that song, like a country song.
Interesting.
And all of like the diehard country fans are like, she needs to stay in her lane. Like, she's not. This isn't good.
It's a loaded conversation.
Yeah. But my point is, like, to some people though, it's like such a good song. I think there's like TikTok dances out. Right? I don't have TikTok, but I think that like, there's TikTok dances out right now with that song. You know what I'm saying? So like, for some people, it is a good song. It just might not be your song. You know? So I think that you can apply that to anything. Like, hey, I'm just not your cup of tea.
That's
I'm someone's
really good,
cup of tea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's okay to say that to people if you have the confidence,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or you can just laugh at it, because especially like if you're doing something for you, like if you want to get up in front of everybody and sing a song, like you have to know that you're doing that like to face your fear.
Right.
It's not for the pleasure of other people. You have to find the reason why. Right. And if your why like is an internalized thing that you're doing something for yourself, you're doing that thing for you can be proud of you. It doesn't matter what other people say about it. That's not why you were doing it.
Right.
Right. So that's
the whole concept of a party line to you. Like, I'm used to the party line, like, and for those who aren't familiar with the concept of a party line, it's literally a line that you say at a party or a social gathering when you are in an uncomfortable situation. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, I feel like I'm going to, and it does not have to be a party per se, just a social gathering or a social interaction. It's like, hey, I know I'm going to be hanging around my uncle or my ex-best friend at this wedding or whatever, and I know every time around them they call me fat. So what am I going to say when they call me fat? Because they're going to do it again this time. And that party line could be something comical, It could be like you're going to crack a joke on them back. Or it could I don't think it's supposed to be like combative. I think it's just supposed to be something that helps you to save face, something that helps you to, just to walk away with some dignity and make you feel like you didn't just get smacked and then have no rebound or no, and it's like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but it's like, oh, Darwin, man, been packing on them pounds, huh? And I could have a party line like, my wife feeds me well.
Yeah.
And just saying that just helps me to walk away feeling like, I don't know, like I have some dignity, or like I said something, or it just helped me to retreat with some dignity or save face, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it also could be something where you just assert a boundary and say, like, hey, that was extremely hurtful to me, or I felt like that was very disrespectful and out of place.
Yeah.
If you care about me, maybe this isn't the right place to say that.
Yeah.
It's
like, hey, I don't appreciate that.
Yeah,
but it's like, what? I actually don't appreciate when people call me, when people reference my weight. I'd appreciate it if you stayed away from that next time, or something like that.
Right. And I think, like, I like that you said it's something that you can say to allow you to walk away from a situation with some sort of dignity.
Yeah.
Because that can look like something different for everybody, right? For some people, they deal with awkward interactions with comedy. There are some people where it's really important for them to feel heard and to stand up for themselves. I think that knowing what to say when people say something uncomfortable, or make you say something that makes you feel uncomfortable or makes you feel hurt, it is good to know what to say. So I like that you said that.
Yeah, and I think that the whole the concept of a party line for yourself, I think is very interesting, because it's like you can have a party line where you are communicating, or you're using this party line in a social situation with someone else, like we just described. But then it's like, what are you going to tell yourself? After this happens, you're driving home in the car and you're replaying the events that happened, which I'm famous for doing. Or you lay down, your head hits the pillow at night, and then all the thoughts from the day come rushing, rushing to your brain. And it's like, well, what are you going to tell yourself? Because I feel like it's important what you tell the people, but what we tell ourselves, the narrative that we tell ourselves, I think is the most important.
Yeah.
So I actually, that concept is actually new for me. The whole concept of, well, what's the party line for myself? When someone says this to me, or hurts me, or rejects me in this way, what am I telling myself about that scenario or about that thing? And I also want to point out that I think that this whole concept of being yourself is difficult in business when you are in need of clients.
Yeah.
Because, I work in sales full time, and it's easy to be like, you know what? I know what it takes to get the sale. Like I know what it takes. Like I know what I'm going to need to do or say, or the person I need to be accepted by these people. And then you can easily end up being a chameleon, or, am I saying that right? I know I say things weird sometimes. Chameleon. What did I say? Chameleon?
I don't know.
Whatever.
It's chameleon.
Okay. Well,
That's
what Jasmine just said. It's easy to be that, where you're changing colors depending on the environment that you're in.
Yeah.
And, I was pretty good at sales, and I know how to make people feel comfortable. I learned a lot of things about sales. And I have to think about, do I feel like I was always my authentic self in each sale, or did I just know who I needed to be or what I needed to be to get the sale, to get the deal across the line? And I think for me, it was less important for me to be my authentic self, like let my personality show per se. It's like I had to define that. What is me? And like I knew what I was not in sales. Like I knew that I was not gonna like manipulate people into something that was not good for them. It had to be mutually beneficial. Sure. I knew that I wasn't gonna take shortcuts at it and feel like we're ethical. Excuse me. Even if there was something that was not illegal or not seen as like morally wrong, if it went against my morals, I wasn't willing to do that. Even if it meant I lose $1 million deal.
Right.
I wasn't willing to cross that. So that was my way of trying to be my authentic self. But I do think that I wanted to I don't know, I wanted to highlight that it can be difficult in business to do that, to be your authentic self, especially when you know that money is on the line and your business needs this money or needs this revenue.
Sure.
So I wanted to just draw attention to that.
Yeah, and I think that also depends on, there's a time and place for everything, right?
Sure,
like you're
sure.
not gonna like go out and try. I mean, in my opinion, right? Like you don't want to like go out and sell someone your whatever it is that you're trying to sell them, right? While you're at the bar, like
Sure.
trying, you know what I mean? Like
being myself.
yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Like,
or if that is the setting that you're in, probably the best idea isn't for you to get drunk or to get your client drunk. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right.
Like that's not
Unprofessional.
To me, that's unprofessional. I don't know. I guess everyone has like their own ways, but I think that leads into like what your point is. Like you have to do what feels right morally for you.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's, again, that just ties into like this whole podcast, right? About being yourself. So the people looking for you can find you,
Yeah.
right? So like if you are, I hope that you're not, no judgment, but I'm just saying, hope you're not. If you are someone who tries to close deals by getting people wasted at the bar,
I was going to say it's not okay.
it's really not.
As a sales professional, and if you disagree, I mean, that's your prerogative. But I'm going to say, personally, that's...
that's wild.
Yeah, and even my experience in real estate, if someone were to sign on a dotted line, like say you put, they were intoxicated when they close on the house, my understanding is that they can later say that they were not in their right mind when they signed that, and legally they can back out of that agreement. I know that I haven't had experience with that specifically, but I do know, and I have had an experience. Like when I was in real estate school, I did have my professor, or the person leading the class, did say that if there's like a parent who's like an elderly parent, and say like both of the younger kids were like pressuring her to sign, she could later on say, hey, I didn't sign that on my own will or on my own accord. I was pressured. And then that she could back out of that agreement. So I just want to say, don't do that. A little bit, I know you spent a little too long on that little tangent, but I just want to say it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
But no, I mean, it's just the point of me bringing that back up was just to drive home. Like you have to do what morally feels right for you.
Sure.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I 100% agree, and I also believe that when you're building a company, at least for us, like being like newer in the entrepreneurship game, like we're not coming from a standpoint of like, hey, like we're pros or we're super experienced or anything like that. But I know for me, like in this season, it's important for me to be proud of what I'm building.
Yeah.
I don't want to build something that I don't feel good about.
Sure.
Like, so, I mean, yeah, I want to get clients. Yeah, I want people to, sign up for the, Patreon group. I want people to buy my merch. But even though I want that, I'm not willing to do things that I don't feel good about to get that, And then I think that it also is hard to have this conversation without this last leg of the conversation, which is, why is it important for the people who are looking for you to find you? Like, why does it even matter? And I want your initial thoughts.
So you want my thoughts from like a personal standpoint or like a businessy standpoint? Because I have thoughts for both.
I don't think that personal and business can really, like, I feel like they're intertwined.
One and the same.
Yeah, or like who, like both of them impact, like who you are as a person impacts who you are in business. I mean, obviously there's a time and a place to separate things, but I feel like the two of them are going to impact each other. So
sure.
Why not just share them both?
Okay. I was just asking, I don't know. So I guess listeners are going to get a little glimpse of like who I am as a person.
It's great.
And like my personal beliefs. But like for me, I believe that number one, I feel like everybody here is on earth for a specific reason. Like if you're here right now, you're here for a reason. Okay. Again, this is just Jasmine's mind. I also believe that we are meant, like there is somebody for everybody. I don't believe that we were meant to live in this world alone. Human beings are social beings. I think that there's like so much science against that. So even if you're not like a spiritual person, there's a lot of science behind it as well.
Yeah.
So if we're meant to be social beings, then we should have people who are looking for us or who are for us. And for me, I'm like, hey, like if you're not being you, or if someone that you're meant to find isn't being themselves, that could leave someone alone or with the wrong people, right?
Yeah.
So in my opinion, we're all meant to find somebody. And so if you're not doing your due diligence for the world and being yourself, someone else will be missing out on like the wonderfulness of you. Even if I don't find you wonderful, someone will find you wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important. And I think if you look into that with business specifically, right? People who are looking for a specific type of vibe or energy, they're going to keep coming back if you match that, right? I remember when Darwin and I had the opportunity to meet a founder and owner of like a really popular barbecue place in a barbecue chain in Florida. They're in other places too, but they're primarily in Florida. Shout
out to Bono's.
And but anyway, like we sat down with the owner and the CEO.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry guys if I'm butchering your titles, but one of the things that they had mentioned is, people, it doesn't matter how many different barbecue places open up, right? You're going to find loyalty in customers because they're going to like you. Yeah. If you create a culture within your restaurant that people want to keep coming back to, they're going to come back just to have that experience. Yeah. Even if another barbecue place down the street is better, maybe their food is better, but if they don't like the atmosphere, they're not going to want to come back. Yeah. You know? And I think it's the same with business. So like if you're trying to create something, why not just be you so you can keep that thing going? Right. Because again, like going back to what I said earlier, I don't think that people can be something that they're not long term. Yeah. Even like to your point that you made earlier, even actors, they're only a character for a certain amount of time. Yeah. Even I know like there's different, I don't want to go on a tangent. But yeah, they're only in character for a certain amount of time. Eventually they have to stop and they have to go back to them, who they actually are. So yeah, I mean, that's my answer.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't know, I think that building off of what you said, I think it's really important to find like our people. Mm-hmm. Like I'll never forget when Jasmine was reading a book by Glennon Doyle called titled Untamed, and I'm so happy she read this book because, and I'll tell you why in a second. She was reading this book and there was some analogy in that. There was an example in the book, and maybe you're better to explain this, but and it was describing how, like, Glennon Doyle was describing how she felt when people like text her.
Okay. All right.
Like, and here's the thing, like, if you get it, you get it, you know? Yeah. Like, this is not me. I do not feel this way, but this is how my wife feels. And she feels like when she gets a text from someone, it's like this intrusion, into her, like,
wow, they're really getting to know me right
now. Personal space, like her, you know? She's like, wait, I didn't welcome you. It's like for me, if somebody just like showed up to my house and just like, I opened the door and it just like came right on in and just joined us at the dinner table, I'd be like, dude, why are you here? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't invite you. Yeah. You know? I'd be like, leave. Like, I mean, if it was like my, like, you know, like one of my like best friends or something, I'd still be like, yo, could you like give me a heads up next time or something? But she was just describing like that's how she feels when she gets a text, and then along with that text comes this expectation to respond within a certain amount of time. Yeah. Or if you read it, and you know, there's this whole thing that I've learned about lately that, you know, leaving people on red is like a thing. So I guess the iPhone folks will get that. Android folks, sorry, but maybe it is a thing in their world. I don't
leave
know.
me on open for the
on open?
Gen Z. That's a Snapchat thing.
Oh, the Snap. Okay, yeah.
I don't know if it's on Instagram thing. I don't know. Good. Keep going.
But that's how she feels. She's like, hey, this person has sent me a message. It feels like they've intruded on my peace, and now there's this expectation that I need to respond within a certain period of time, like same day, 24 hours. If you go a few days or a week, people are like, dude, what happened? It's like, nothing happened. I just, like, I didn't invite you over, like, you know? And so she read this, and if I'm butchering anything, just you can clarify, but she read this and she was like, wow, I think I've just like found my people. Yeah. She was like, she gets me.
Yeah.
And then I was happy because I was like, wow, this thing that you've been feeling for years, Glennon Doyle put into words.
Yes.
And then you were able to take those words and communicate it to me.
Yes.
And then I was able to learn more about you.
Yes.
And that to me is so valuable because Glennon Doyle was being herself, the people that were looking for her, like my wife, was able to find her.
Yeah.
And she's a part of the We Can Do Hard Things podcast, and I actually love that podcast. And hopefully, you know, one day they can learn about us. Who knows?
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. Hey.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. Yes, it is true. I do not like text. I do like texting. Okay, so let me back up. So the book is called Untamed, and it is honestly about learning how to be you. Without the expectations that society can put on you, right?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful story. It's her story, essentially, to how she got to where she is now. But in general, another side note is I have learned that I am someone who really, sometimes it's hard for me to find words to figuring out how to explain myself. So to Darwin's point, I've always like felt this thing when people like text me. I didn't used to be like this. I used to be someone who would text back right away. And I would feel guilty if I didn't text back right away, or if I didn't, it'd be a whole thing, like this whole anxiety.
You weren't living as your authentic self.
Yes, but it would be like this whole anxiety provoking thing. And I was never able to figure out what it is. And then as life went on, you know, getting, you know, married, living with my husband and having children, and then working and, you know, all different life responsibilities. Like I'm someone who like, I really need to do one thing at a time, if I'm being honest, to do it well. And so when it comes to phones, if I'm being honest with myself, the expectation that I'm always going to be available to other people is really, it gives me too much anxiety. Like I cannot always be around.
Yeah.
You know, and for a while I used to feel really guilty about that. You know, Darwin and I have moved a couple of times. We've created relationships in other places. And like there are friends that I have who don't like to talk on the phone. They prefer to text. And for me, a text message is just so like, it can be really intrusive to my day, and not in like a negative way, but of how it makes me feel. So to his point, her just being open about that, and how she put it in the book is so funny. But her being open about that made me feel like, wow, it's not just me. Because for a while I did feel like there was something wrong with me, or I needed to be more for all these people. But I think what I learned is that my real friends, they know. I actually have a friend who literally said, if I text you on Sunday, I don't expect to hear back from you until like a Thursday. And that I could take that either way. That could be hurtful. But I'm like, hey, thank you for accepting that in me. You know, like you're not like, she's not shaming me for it. It's just how it is. And sometimes I am really good. Sometimes I will text you back right away.
So like, I feel like something that you said, because Glennon Doyle put that in her book and you read that, it allowed you to know that it was okay to be that way. It's almost like it gave you the license to be that way, or it gave you validity.
Yes.
It gave your feelings validity. And I think that that's a part of what's so crucial about this whole topic that we're discussing right now. By being yourself, you have no idea who you could be freeing.
Yeah.
you don't know what chains you could be breaking. Like, what person has been living as their inauthentic self, who, by you being your authentic self, they resonated with you. They found you because you are their people, their kind of person. And you gave them the license. So you gave them the words that they needed to be their authentic selves, to live authentically.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows how critical or how pivotal that can be for someone's journey.
Yeah.
And this might be a person that you never actually meet. Like, my wife has not met Glennon Doyle. You know, I have not met, like, Rob from the Robcast. But the episode he did with his wife, the deep knowing episode that he did with his wife, like, has changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
He has no idea.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's a part of, like, living authentically. I also think that you will find your most loyal clients. And I say that not because I have built this massive client base, but I have become a loyal client to people who resonate with me.
Mm-hmm.
And because they resonate with me, because I feel like I found my people, I'm not going anywhere else.
Yeah.
You know, so like when if you're trying to build a company or you're trying to build a business, I know for me it's like I want to be myself, because the people who find me, man, they were really looking for me, and they're gonna stay.
Yeah.
They're my day ones. They're gonna be loyal.
Yeah.
Looking for my day ones, y'all.
But you do have your day ones, though. I see his numbers. They're like consistent people who really be listening. You need to like own that. They were looking for you, you know?
They were looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only up from here, guys.
Yeah.
We going up. Everybody gonna eat. We all gonna eat.
Yeah.
Oh man. And yeah, and so I love that you said that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great example. Something that you said when we were prepping for this too is to be open to what community may look like.
Yeah.
You know, and we gave the example of when we were talking, we were talking about this podcast called Shrink Chicks, and we're dropping a ton of books and podcasts today. That's just the episode that this is.
That's also who we are.
That's who we are.
We are podcast listeners, and especially. I love
we love consuming podcasts. Yes, we do.
And reading.
And my wife is a reader. I am a audio reader.
But you still like books.
I do like books. I like books. And I do read books just very slowly.
Yeah.
Like page by page. Like
yes.
1 page a day.
So
kind of thing. 2 pages a day.
If you are a book reader, let me know in the comments.
Yeah.
I don't have social media, but I will get your email address.
Yeah. My wife is she loves books.
Yeah.
And I say that because, or what I was getting at was, there's a podcast called Shrink Chicks, and you guys may have heard of them. And they are 2 white women from, I guess, the suburbs of Philadelphia. And it seems like their podcast is really geared towards women. I wouldn't say just white women, but their podcast is geared towards women. Like if they were to describe it, they might not say my podcast is only for white women. It's just, you know, but who their target, maybe their avatar is, maybe it is, I don't know. But either way, they have male listeners, and they've, you know, described that, but they've talked about that on the show before. But a lot of their stuff really resonate with me, and I love that podcast. When they were starting their podcast, they probably were not creating their podcast for black males. You know, maybe they figured that they might get a couple, but that's not who they were thinking or they were targeting as far as like who is your avatar, who's your target audience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but here I am.
Yeah.
And I think that it's critical for us to be open to who our people might look like or what they might be like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it's like, hey, be yourself so that people looking for you can find you. When they find you, you know, it's like, hey, we got to be open to who they are, who they might be.
Mm-hmm.
Might be unexpected, but they might be your people. They just might not look like or act like or be like who you thought. And I don't just mean from like from a race standpoint. I mean from like personality standpoint, temperament, age, profession, background, just whatever bucket you can think of.
Yeah.
Who knows? You know, but just be open to that.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure. I mean, yeah. And not just in business, I think just in life. I think that's like a life tip.
Yeah.
We can go around the world thinking about who we want our friends to be. And we have like, everyone does it. I think you have like this idea of like who your people are, you know?
Yeah.
And in reality, you don't know who your next best friend could be, or your next best, most loyal client could be, you know? I mean, I can think of in general, like most of the closest people I have in my life, I probably never expected it to be those people. And if I'm being real with everyone, the people who I try the hardest to be closest to are the relationships that really just didn't work for me, you know, for one reason or another. You know what I mean? And so I think that being open piece is so key to life in general. You know, just let things be organic. And don't try to, what's the word? I guess don't write somebody off. Just because you think that they're not for you. Because you never know.
They might be your people.
They might be.
They might be your people. Yeah. And so before we move on to the no regrets segment of the show, I wanted to make sure that I opened it up for any I don't want to say closing thoughts, because it's not the end of the episode. The no regret segment is my favorite segment. But I know I have one. If you have any, just share any last thoughts. But I wanted to say that this journey of starting the podcast, starting business, like it hasn't been easy to be my authentic self and then let the world just be in that vulnerable space. And then also me being in a position to be rejected. That hasn't been easy, because those who are friends with me, they know that social media is like not my thing. Like my personal social media, if anyone wants to try to find it, I'm sure it's not that hard to find. But I haven't posted in like 12 years or something like that. It's just not my thing. But I've had to engage with social media for business, like for the podcast, because how do you market a podcast without social media?
Especially now.
It's a lot harder, a lot slower. You need social media. So, and then I've had to put my face on social media, which to this day, I still have not done like selfie videos, but my face is still on social media. And even that has been tough. I've gotten more comfortable with it. Now we're doing a video podcast, and
you joined a live last week?
Yeah, joined a live. Yeah, shout out to Peekins. Shout out to Peekins. He was on episode
not too long ago. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The one before the last one.
Yeah. But like those things have not been easy. And it's like, how do I be myself? How do I be authentic? But I don't want to put it all out there. Because there's some things that just aren't anyone's business. There's some things in my personal life that I'm going to keep personal. But I do want to be authentic. I want to be myself. And that's actually part of the reason why I don't do a lot of like selfie videos. It doesn't feel like it's me.
Yeah.
And I might that might change. Who knows? But that's been tough. And there's been the temptation to want to just put on whatever shell I need to put on, or change colors, like the chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
Said that right?
Chameleon.
Great. Had to make sure. But to change colors and just and blend in to be what I'm going to be accepted to be, because it's tough to create a podcast and put it out there and then no one likes it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, how do I be what people like while also being myself?
Yeah.
And it's a tricky thing to navigate through, but I have been doing my best. to live authentically and to be myself.
Yeah.
Even on these podcasts. So, yeah, I wanted to put that out there as well. Any closing thoughts before we transition to the no regrets segment of the show, Jasmine?
I think just to piggyback off of that, like, I think that you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Doing it, you know, and again, I like I said before, like I'm like such a firm believer that like there is somebody for everybody. Like, I don't think that we would be here if we weren't supposed to come across certain people in life, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think I can totally resonate just with the feeling of not wanting to put yourself out there for, you know, the only social media I have like one that like shows like my life. I don't know, but like not really, because I don't ever post on it.
Yeah.
And I don't really go on it. So like I can, you know, you're one of my people, right? Like we're not social media heavy people. But to your point that you made, I mean, if we kind of drive home everything, like I believe that like this podcast is here for a reason. You can't tell me that it's not. I don't care who you are. You can't tell me that this podcast is not supposed to be here, right?
Yeah.
And there's no better way to try to reach those people than doing this. This is what most people are doing, right? A lot of people are on social media, and maybe someone needed to hear, hey, like, I don't have to be what people are gonna like literally. I don't have to be what people are going to press the like button for. I can just be me, and that's it. Like, that's good enough. That's not just good enough. That's exactly what is needed. That's exactly what is necessary. It's actually one of the reasons why I'm very against social media, because I don't like anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent, but yes, I just wanted to say that to you. It's supposed to be here.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's transition into the no regrets segment of the show. But before we transition into the no regrets segment of the show, just a couple of quick reminders. Stay tuned for the episode that drops next week. At this point in time, I'm not 100% sure where this episode that we're recording today is going to fall in the lineup. So there's a mystery episode dropping next week. Stay tuned. And I also, you know, we talked about it in the episode, but I really want to invite you guys to join the Contagious Collective. The Contagious Collective? What is that, might you ask? Well, this is a Patreon group where we release behind the scenes exclusive content that's not released to the public. The main thing that I want to put out for you guys in the Patreon group is just my journey and what's going on behind the scenes. What's it like to be a father of 3, a husband, friend, have a personal life, while trying to build a dream, while trying to pursue our dreams. You know, it's tough to get into all of that on the show sometimes, and so I wanted to have a place where I can share that with you guys, for those who want to be a part of, they want to be a part of my people. They want to be in my corner. And I hope that it's valuable to you guys. I believe it will be. So that's the Contagious Collective. We have other goals and dreams for that. And there's also some parts of the episodes that are either not appropriate because of the content to be put out on the podcasting platforms. And so we release it on the Patreon so you guys can, you know, still have access to some of it. Some of it's pretty entertaining. So that's another place for that as well. Also, please check out the contagiousthoughtspodcast.com and then go over to shop. Check out the merch that Jazz and I are currently sporting. It's pretty fly. I mean, check out the back of my hoodie, guys. Come on.
Look at that.
You see that? I mean, all the shirts that you see on the website, there's something on the back, guys. And it's pretty cool, you know. Just take your pick. But in all seriousness, everything that we're talking about right now, the merge, the Contagious Collective, you know, Patreon group, all of that stuff supports the podcast. As you guys know, this around me is thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and there's been a lot of effort put into the podcast, so it's a great way to support. Also, follow us on social media, where IG, I want to say, is probably where we're the most active, but we are also on TikTok and Facebook. We do YouTube Shorts. Obviously, this video is going to be on YouTube. Follow us there. And with that, let's transition over to the No Regrets segment of the show. Come on. Hey. The No Regrets segment of the show is where myself and my guests have a chance to reflect back on the episode and answer the following questions. Number 1, is there anything that we said that we regret saying, even if it's how we said something? And number 2, is there anything that we did not say that we wish we did say? And with that, let's dive in. So, Jasmine, ladies first. Is there anything that you said on the show that you regret saying? Not counting the stuff that we're like obviously going to edit out.
Yeah.
Because if you say it, then it's like it's going to be in there. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I already told you what I wanted you to edit out. But
yeah.
But so if there is a part in the beginning, and I'm trying to like look at your notes, but maybe you can scroll down. Okay, so in the beginning, when we first started talking, getting into the article, I definitely butchered Arlan Hamilton's business, and I would like you to edit it in if you can. If you cannot, well, it'll be in the show. I think it's called Backstage Studios, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong.
We'll
but
put it in the show notes.
I do think it's really important just to highlight it because it is a really good business, and it can be super valuable for people who are looking for investors in their business. So I definitely regret that. I also got super distracted when we were talking about I'm trying to look at the exact part in question.
So we're talking about learning who you are.
Yeah, when we were talking about learning who we are, and specifically I got distracted because our kids had just come home from school, and I think Darwin talked about this. I don't know if he's going to keep it on there. But essentially, my mom was trying to keep them outside until we finished up. We weren't anywhere near done yet, and the baby was crying, and I was super not focused. So I feel like when you watch this video or when you play it back, it's going to be a lot of me saying,
it's not going to be perfect.
It's not going to be perfect. So anyway.
Never is.
I don't know exactly what I said at that time, but if I could do it again, I would. That's probably my only regret, and I'm sure there were things I wish I could say, but I can't remember what I even said. So that is the part I regret the most.
Sure. I would say that my regret, I want to say I regret not starting earlier. Because if we'd started earlier, maybe we would have had less distractions. Like when our kids came home, and then the sun started setting. So I'm sure part of the videos you're gonna see like lines on Jasmine's face from like when the sun is shining through the blinds. So sometimes we get comments on YouTube of just people like giving critiques of like audio quality or video quality, things like that. So I might get a couple of those, but hey, now at least you know what was going on. But back to my regret, if I started earlier, we would have had that situation because the sun would have been higher in the sky and all that. And I think we would have been able to shoot this in one take instead of like
4.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 takes. So if like you're playing this video and all of a sudden like I'm like over here or like over there, or Jasmine's like moving around like out of nowhere, like she's like levitating and just moving, it's because obviously we had to cut the video and continue recording.
It's because I can levitate, actually.
She can levitate.
I can.
Yeah, she can fly.
A lot of cool skills.
Like levitation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That would be cool if you could.
It would be.
Transport us places like a superpower.
Yeah. Would I want that as my superpower? That should be a question one day. Anyway.
So number 2 in the no regret segment of the show is if there's anything that you said, is there anything that you did not say that you wish you did say? Anything you want to add? Or anything you wish you did say is another way to say that.
No, not really.
That's fair.
I don't think so. Like I said, I think I probably could have said more in the learning who you are section.
Sure.
I definitely know I could have but maybe I was never meant to say it. So maybe that's why it didn't come out.
Yeah. And I think for me, I wonder when I listen back to this, if I'm going to wish that I shared more personal examples. I think I did a good amount of personal examples, for people to actually be able to relate to like what I'm saying. So I might regret that. I'm not sure. But I also think that maybe I could have tied some things more into business, like specific examples in business. But I know that Jasmine and I are going to be doing an episode on Patreon where we dive into like our journey of being a married couple with kids, starting businesses even before the podcast. So, yeah. Well, guys, with that, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today, baby girl, and I can't wait for more recording sessions with you.
Yeah.
Another recording sesh.
Yeah.
And
I'm really curious what everyone's going to think.
Yeah, I'm curious.
The people who don't already know me that listen.
Yeah.
I'm so curious.
I get to explore that curiosity every episode. But with that, I'll catch you guys next time.